Mastering Anxiety, Practical Tools for a Calmer, Happier Life. Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we're diving into a topic that's close to many of us, anxiety. We all experience it at some point, and it can be a huge obstacle to living peacefully. Anxiety is that overwhelming feeling of unease, worry, or fear, and often it's about things that haven't even happened yet. The future feels uncertain, and our minds start spinning with endless what-ifs. Now, anxiety itself isn't the problem. It's a normal, natural response to stress. It can even be helpful in certain situations, like when you need to avoid danger or perform well in a high-stakes moment. But when anxiety becomes overwhelming or constant, it can start to interfere with our lives. It makes us feel paralyzed, unable to act, and keeps us from enjoying the present moment. So today I want to share with you some practical tips on how to manage and reduce anxiety. These aren't quick fixes or magic cures. Anxiety is something that takes time and patience to work through. But with consistent effort, you can build habits that make a real difference in how you handle it. Let's get started. Understanding anxiety. What is it, really? Before we dive into the steps to manage anxiety, let's take a moment to understand what anxiety actually is. Anxiety is essentially your brain's way of warning you about potential danger. It's the same fight-or-flight response that our ancestors relied on to survive. When you're anxious, your body is preparing you to either confront a threat or escape from it. Your heart rate goes up, your muscles tense, and your mind becomes hyper-focused on whatever's causing the fear. This was really useful back in the day when threats were more immediate, like predators or natural dangers. But in modern life, many of the things we worry about are not physical dangers. We're not running from lions or defending ourselves from attackers. Instead, our threats are often imagined or about things that might happen in the future. Work deadlines, relationships, finances, health, and so on. Our minds create endless scenarios of what could go wrong, and that's where anxiety starts to take over. One of the tricky things about anxiety is that it feeds on itself. The more we worry, the more anxious we feel, and the more anxious we feel, the more we worry. It becomes this vicious cycle that can feel impossible to break. But the truth is, with the right approach, we can break that cycle, or at least manage it in a way that doesn't consume us. Step 1. Acknowledge and accept your anxiety. The very first step in dealing with anxiety is to acknowledge it. This sounds simple, but it's actually pretty tough for a lot of people. Most of us don't want to admit when we're feeling anxious. We try to push it away, ignore it, or pretend we're fine. But here's the thing. When you resist anxiety, it only gets stronger. Imagine your anxiety like a wave in the ocean. If you try to fight the wave, you'll get knocked over. But if you acknowledge the wave and ride with it, you can stay afloat. The same goes for anxiety. You can't fight it directly. The more you try to push it away, the more powerful it becomes. Instead, you have to acknowledge it. Say to yourself, okay, I'm feeling anxious right now. My mind overdrive. Accepting your anxiety doesn't mean giving in to it. It doesn't mean you're okay with feeling anxious forever. It just means you're being honest with yourself about what's happening. You're not running from it anymore. You're facing it head on. This is an important first step because it allows you to start working with your anxiety rather than against it. Once you've acknowledged it, try to dig a little deeper and figure out what's causing your anxiety. Are you worried about a specific event or situation? Are you feeling overwhelmed by too many tasks or responsibilities? Sometimes just identifying the root of your anxiety can help reduce its power over you. Step 2. Break down your tasks, one thing at a time. One of the biggest triggers for anxiety is feeling overwhelmed. When you have too many things on your plate, your mind starts racing, trying to figure out how to get everything done. This leads to a feeling of helplessness, because you know you can't possibly tackle everything at once. Here's the thing, you don't have to do everything at once. In fact, you can't do everything at once, no matter how hard you try. That's why it's so important to break things down into smaller, manageable tasks. Instead of looking at the big picture and feeling overwhelmed, focus on one thing at a time. Let's say you've got a massive project due at work. The thought of completing the entire thing feels impossible, right? But what if you broke it down into smaller steps? First, make an outline. Then, do some research. Next, Write a rough draft. By breaking the project down into smaller, more manageable tasks, you reduce the overall anxiety because you're no longer looking at the whole thing all at once. To make this even more effective, I recommend physically writing things down. Take a piece of paper and list everything that's on your mind, everything that's causing you anxiety. Then, categorize those items into things you can control, and things you can't control. This is key because anxiety thrives on uncertainty and things we have no power over. By separating out what's within your control, you can focus your energy on what you can do, rather than stressing over things that are out of your hands. Once you've got your list, pick just one thing to focus on. Just one. Forget about everything else for now. Zero in on that one task and give it your full attention. Once it's done, move on to the next. It's kind of like juggling oranges. If you try to juggle too many at once, you're going to drop them all. But if you juggle one at a time, you'll stay in control. Step 3. Slow down. Pace yourself. When we're anxious, we tend to rush through things. Our minds are racing, and we think that if we can just get things done faster, we'll feel better. But rushing actually has the opposite effect. It makes us feel even more anxious because we're not giving ourselves time to breathe, think clearly, or even enjoy the process. One of the best ways to combat anxiety is to slow down. When you're doing something, whether it's a task for work, a chore around the house, or even something as simple as eating a meal, try to do it slowly and mindfully. Pay attention to each step and allow yourself to be fully present in the moment. This is where mindfulness practices come in. Mindfulness is all about being fully aware of what's happening in the present moment. It's about noticing your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. When you're mindful, you're not thinking about the past or the future. You're just here, right now. There's a strong connection between our body and mind. When you slow down your physical movements, it has a calming effect on your mental state. For example, if you're feeling anxious, try walking slowly, taking deep breaths, and moving your body in a relaxed, deliberate way. You'll notice that as your body slows down, your mind will start to slow down too. Step 4. Complete your actions. Don't leave things hanging. Another common side effect of anxiety is that we tend to leave things unfinished. We'll start a task, but halfway through, our anxiety gets the better of us, and we move on to something else. This creates a cycle of incomplete actions that only adds to our stress. When you start something, make it a point to finish it. This doesn't mean you have to rush or force yourself to do everything perfectly. It just means you're committing to seeing the task through to the end. When you complete something, you'll feel a sense of accomplishment, which helps to reduce anxiety. It's like closing a loop in your mind. Once the loop is closed, your brain can move on. Step 5. Practice self-compassion. You're human, not a robot. Finally, I want to talk about the importance of self-compassion. We live in a world that values productivity and success, and it's easy to feel like we're not doing enough or that we're failing when anxiety slows us down. But here's the truth. You're human. You're not a machine, and you're not supposed to be perfect. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to feel anxious sometimes. What's important is how you respond to it. Be kind to yourself. When anxiety shows up, don't beat yourself up for feeling it. Instead, treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend who's struggling. Remind yourself that it's okay to take breaks, to ask for help, and to not have everything figured out all the time. Self-compassion is a powerful tool because it shifts your mindset from one of judgment and self-criticism to one of acceptance and kindness. It helps to quiet the inner critic that often fuels anxiety and replaces it with a voice of support and understanding. In summary, anxiety is something we all experience, but it doesn't have to control our lives. By acknowledging and accepting our anxiety, breaking down tasks, slowing down, completing actions, and practicing self-compassion, we can take practical steps toward managing it. These aren't quick fixes, but they are habits that over time can make a big difference in how we feel. So next time anxiety creeps in, remember, you have the tools to handle it. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive into anxiety management. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need it. Don't forget to subscribe for more tips on living a calmer, happier life. See you next time.